of limb for the purpose of breaking constitutes an entry, while the insertion of an instrument for the same purpose of breaking does not. They argue that insertion of an instrument could only constitute entry if it was done for the purpose of committing the ultimate felony in respect of which accused intended to enter the dwelling house. 3.4 Intent for the offenses of burglary and housebreaking to succeed. The intent to commit a felony, not necessarily stealing, must exist at the time of breaking and entry. The felony contemplated here may be murder, arson, or rape, etc. With respect to existence of intent at the time of breaking and entry, if one night A, honestly believing that B's house is on fire, breaks open a front door in order to put out the fire and discovers that there is not fire, but he is then tempted to steal and does in fact steal in the dwelling house, he is not guilty of burglary, unless if after committing the felony he breaks out through another part of the building. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal LA. W. 68. 3.5 Dwelling house. Section 1 of the Criminal Code defines a dwelling house to include any building or part of a building or structure which is for the time being kept by owner or occupier for the residence therein of himself, his family or servant, or any of them, and it is immaterial that is from time to time inhabited. Also a building or structure adjacent to, and occupied with a dwelling house is deemed to part of the dwelling house if there is a communication between such building or structure and the dwelling house, either immediate or by means of covered and enclosed passage leading from one room to the other, but not otherwise. In order to determine what constitute a dwelling house, the test is not what the building or house is built for, but what it is used for. Illustration: if a building was initially built as a warehouse but I now habitually sleep in it and use it as my residence, it is a dwelling house. Provided, therefore, that the building is a dwelling house, it does not matter that the owner is temporarily away, may be on holidays or on a course elsewhere. In R.V. Rose. 1965, QWN 35, the court held that a structure such as a caravan which is kept by the occupier for the residence of himself is a dwelling house. Similarly, in R.V. Halloran. 1967, QWN 59, a motel unit occupied by a lodger for a week was held to be dwelling house. Section 413(1) of the Criminal Code provides for the offense of breaking into other buildings and to commit a felony therein. For what constitute other building, it is pertinent to note that schoolhouse, ship, warehouse, office, or counting house, etc., come within that meaning. See Section 413(2) of the Criminal Code. Section 313 of the Criminal Code deals with building used as a place of worship. In this offense, there must be 1. Breaking, 2. Entry, and 3. Commission of felony. In the alternative, there may be no breaking but an entry, commission of a felony, and breaking out. See also Section 416 of Criminal Code. 4.0 Conclusion. In the unit, you were made to understand that for the offense of housebreaking and burglary to be proved, the following elements of the crime must be present. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal LA. W. 69. Breaking and entering a building or structure. Unlawful and intentional. The element of time also has to be put into consideration in defining the type of crime committed. The unit demonstrates for your understanding the requirements for certain crimes against property by considering the possible liability to an accused for the crime of housebreaking and burglary with intent to commit a crime. 5.0 Summary. Burglary and housebreaking are offenses commonly committed by criminals in our society. Time of breaking in and breaking out of the premises determines whether the offense committed is burglary or housebreaking. While breaking in, the intention of the accused must be to commit a felony. Breaking by the accused can be either actual or constructive breaking. Entering occurs whenever any part of the accused body or any part of the instrument used by him projects into the building. The offenses are said to be committed in a dwelling house. 6.0 Tutor marked assignment 1. If I break into a house with no intention of committing felony therein, have I committed any offense? If so, why? If not so, why? 2. How can you distinguish between the offenses of housebreaking from burglary? 3. The purpose of a dwelling house is different from that which is not. Discuss. 7.0 References / further reading Okonkwo Co and Naish, 1990. Criminal Law in Nigeria. Ibadan, Spectrum Law Publishing. Obilade, T.A. Nigerian Legal System. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal L.A. W. 70. Facade. Nigeria Criminal Code Companion. Criminal Code Act 1990, Cap 77 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria. Unit 3 Treason. This unit is an attempt to analytically examine the offense of treason, and it will be treated against the backdrop of the following items. Contents. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal L.A. W. 71. 1.0 Introduction. 2.0 Objectives. 3.0 Main Content. 3.1 Criminalization. 3.2 Levying War. 3.3 Treasonable Felonies. 3.4 Limitation of Time. 4.0 Conclusion. 5.0 Summary. 6.0 Tutor Marked Assignment. 7.0 References / further reading. 1.0 Introduction. Treason is a felony and it is committed against lawfully constituted government of the state or the Federation of Nigeria. It is committed when the accused does everything possible to ensure the overthrow of a lawfully constituted government and begins to manifest same by some overacts. 2.0 Objectives. At the end of this unit, you should be able to show what constitutes the offense of treason. Show when it can be said that a person has committed the offense of treason or treasonable felonies. Explain what amounts to waging of war in the offense of treason. Main content. Criminalization. The offense of treason is contained in Section 37(1) of the Criminal Code. That section states that any person who levies / wages war against the state in order to intimidate or overawe the president or the governor of a state, is guilty of treason, and is liable to the punishment of death. Any person conspiring with another person, either within or without Nigeria, to levy war against the state with the intent to cause such levying of war as would be treason if committed by a citizen of Nigeria, is guilty of treason and is liable to the punishment of death. See Section 37(2) of the Criminal Code. In an AR VR. 1965, 1 All NLR 125, the court held that a conspiracy to levy war against the state, which is treason under Section 37(2) of the Criminal Code, should be charged under that section and not under CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal L.A. W. 72. Section 516, which deals with conspiracies generally. This means that Section 37(2) was the appropriate section on which the accused could be properly charged. 3.2 Levying war. In order to constitute a levying of war, it is not necessary that the accused persons should be members of a military force or even trained in the use of arms. The type of weapon used also is immaterial as the smallness of the number of persons engaged in levying the war. In R.V. Gallagher. 1883. The court held that the phrase, levying of war, is general and descriptive. It was obvious that war might be levied in different ways and by different ages of the world. The above dictum was cited with approval in the celebrated case of R.V. in Era. 1963, LL 91 at 312. The war levied by the accused must be for a general and public purpose. If it is done merely for a private purpose, the offense may be termed as a riot. C.R.V. Hardy. 1821, 1 St. Tr. 609. The question now is whether upon a charge of treason under Section 37(1), it must be proved by the prosecution that the president or the governor was personally intimidated or overawed. The Supreme Court, in rejecting this line of reasoning, stated that there is no difference between intimidating and overawing the state and doing the same to the head of state, president, for the president is the embodiment of the state and to intimidate him is the same as intimidating the state. Cr. V. Burrow. 1966, 1 All NLR 266. The decision of the Apex Court has been criticized on the ground that, having regard to the wordings of the offense of treason under Section 37(1) of the Criminal Code, The prosecution must prove, in addition to other ingredients, that the president was personally intimidated and overawed. For example, the state Nigeria is a different person from whoever occupies the office of president. If the prosecution proves that war has been levied against the state and that person has intimidated and overawed the president, conviction will lie against the accused. It seems plain that the above decision was predicated on policy with a view to guarding against the untoward conduct of treason against the state, but was not based on the proper interpretation of Section 37(1). Under Section 40 of the Criminal Code, any person who becomes an accessory after the fact to treason, or knowing that another person intends to commit treason, fails to give prompt information thereof to CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal Law. W. 73. The appropriate authority or fails to use other reasonable endeavors to prevent the commission of an offense is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. 3.3 Treasonable felonies if or the governor of a state, otherwise than by constitutional means for purpose of levying war against Nigeria in order to compel the president to change his measure, polices, or counsels in order to put any force or constraint upon or in order to intimidate or overawe the National Assembly or any other legislature or legislative authority, or to instigate any foreigner to make any armed invasion of Nigeria or any of the territories, states, thereof, and goes further to manifest such intentions by an overt, positive, acts. Such a person is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. See Section 41 paragraphs A-D of the Criminal Code. 3.4 Limitation of time. A person cannot be tried for treason, treasonable felony, concealment of treason and promoting intercommunal war, native war, unless the prosecution is commenced within 2 years after the offense is committed. On the strength of evidence to be adduced by the prosecution against the accused for any of the foregoing offenses, see Section 179(2) of the Criminal Procedure Act. 4.0 Conclusion. This crime is only committed if, in addition to the other requirements, the action of a person or group assumes serious proportions. One of the reasons for the existence of the crime is to protect the state or lawful constituted authorities from intimidation and harassment. In this crime, intent is the form of culpability required. The individual accused must have been aware of the nature and purpose of the action of the group, and her participation in the activities of the group must be intentional. You should be able to distinguish between treason, treasonable felony, and intertribal wars. 5.0 Summary. Treason or treasonable felonies are heinous crimes. In waging war, the accused need not be a member of a military force or trained in the use of arms. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal Law. W. 74. The war must be levied for a general or public purpose. The prosecution of an accused for the offenses of treason, treasonable felony, etc., must be commenced within 2 years after the offense is committed. 6.0 Tutor Marked Assignment 1. Distinguish between treason and treasonable felony. 2. Can it be said that a person has committed treason if by his act the President of Nigeria is not overawed or intimidated? 3. What is the strength of evidence to be added by the prosecution before a conviction can be sustained on any of the foregoing offenses? 7.0 References/further reading. Okonkwo Co. and Naish, 1990. Criminal Law in Nigeria. Ibadan, Spectrum Law Publishing. Smith & Hogan Criminal Law. Glanville Williams Textbook of Criminal Law. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal Law. W. 75. Unit 4. The offense of rape. In this unit, you will be exposed to the offense of rape, which is rarely reported amongst the adult and which is more often committed particularly against very young girls. This unit will examine the following sub-themes: Contents 1.0 Introduction, 2.0 Objectives, 3.0 Main Content, 3.1 Detailed Facts, 3.2 Capacity, 3.3 Carnal Knowledge, 3.4 Consent, 3.5 Mental elements required for commission for the offense of rape. 3.6 Attempted rape. 3.7 Evidential corroboration in sexual offenses. 4.0 Conclusion. 5.0 Summary. 6.0 Tutor marked assignment. 7.0 References/further reading. 1.0 Introduction. The offense of rape very frequently occurs but is very rarely reported. This centers on the fact that very often the victims, usually female adults, protect their personality and integrity and therefore shy away from laying complaint against the accused. The offense is committed when the accused, usually a male, without the consent of the victim or through consent obtained by fraud or intimidation, has a carnal knowledge of the complainant. 2.0 Objectives. At the end of this unit, you should be able to explain what constitutes the offense of rape. Identify the circumstances under which it could be said that the offense of rape has been committed. CSS 152. Introduction to Nigeria Criminal LA. W. 76. 3.0 Main content. 3.1 Detailed facts in discussing the offense of rape. Particular reference shall be paid to sections 36, 357 and 358 of the Criminal Code, which border respectively on capacity, carnal knowledge, consent and punishment for rape. Section 357 of the Criminal Code defines rape, and it has this to say: any person who has unlawful carnal knowledge of woman or girl without her consent or with her consent, if the consent is obtained by force or by means of false or fraudulent representation as to the nature of act, or in the case of a married woman by impersonating her husband, is guilty of the offense which is called rape. Furthermore, Section 358 states that any person who commits the offense of rape